And I think we're live. So, hello. Welcome to the Q&A and Critique number 85. This is a Let's Be for Artists edition live stream digital art and questions and answers event here in the Q&A and Critique voice chat and Discord. We're currently live here on Twitch and on YouTube, and we have a number of topics to talk about today and a lot of incredible art, especially space art, coming in today. And we also have an art review with Haley's truck that we saw briefly last week. So we're getting our hands on, getting it dirty, and getting it into the modeling a little bit. And we're going to first talk about the splash screen that I have today done with the latest music video that I showed a couple weeks back. In progress. So I have finally finished this episode. I've been talking with my client, which was here many episodes ago. When we will publish this, maybe we will do it when I finish the whole entire project. So you might not be able to see it on YouTube just yet, but I will give you a technical breakdown, piece by piece, of how I made this particular episode. So stay in tune for the breakdown starting soon. And then at the latter half hour of this show, we're going to be taking a look at creating mind maps using the grease pencil. So I have a game assets project where I've got some references both from other video games and also from different types of concept art. And also I'm starting the next chapter, which is where I'm going to be working with. And I'm going to do a quick summary of how to go through the concept art process of training yourself, I guess you could say, to create the art. And finally, something that I wasn't able to talk about last week was about how I've set up my Windows 11 system to feel like I'm using Windows 10. So if you're interested in that, stick around till the end, and this is the content that we have today. So Haley here, with the truck, is going to be my co-host today.
Yay!
And we're going to first take a look at the breakdown of the project. So the things we're going to take a look at in the breakdown is the modeling process, the rigging process briefly, the art and concept process, the animatic process, layout, lighting, setting up the render, getting it done, and then doing the final export and the render from all inside of Blender or Be for Artists. So let's begin. So before I begin, Haley, have you done animation before?
I actually have. I was a FBLA state champion in animation.
Oh, that's cool. And what did you
Yeah.
animate?
We animated like something promoting one of our classes because it's a state school program, and the top 4 animators got to go to nationals out in Chicago, Illinois. So I got to go to Chicago for the first time in my life. Great experience. We lost, but now we're trying to run it back again. Uh, Not sure if I can say what we're doing for this year's animation until after FBLA, because I don't know how all that confidentiality stuff works. But yes, I am a one-time state animation champion as of right now.
Oh, excellent. So I guess you understand the general structure in general.
Eh, as much as I can. No, I mean, even before then, I haven't really done that much animating other than just making some goofy scenes or something. Like, oh wow, look at this ball character. Whoa, he's spin. But yeah, I can try.
Wait, he spins?
He spins, the ball spins.
Yes.
That's good. Okay, well, this particular video started with, so let's start with the breakdown, and I'm glad you have some general context when it comes to creating the animation starting from the ground up and in a competitive scene, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
So when it
A lot of
comes,
pressure.
yeah, there is. I have some pressure with this project too. It has been a long time. I've been working on this just over a year now, which took a while to develop the shader and then started working on the videos. And so far, I think I have done how many minutes of animation so far? Let me just double confirm. I'm on episode 5. I'm going on to episode 6, which is a total of export videos. Let's check out my masters. So first video is basically 2 minutes 20 seconds. This one is another minute 11 seconds, so that's 3 minutes 30. This one is another 2 minutes, so 5 minutes 30. And I've done another 2 minutes, so 7 minutes 30. And last but not least, another minute. So 8 minutes 30. I've done 8 minutes 30 of animation over the year. And the project has taken more or less 450 hours, more or less.
Wait, so this music video is like almost 10 minutes long?
Well, there are multiple chapters, so the whole entire project is about 8 minutes so far.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so each episode is about between 1 and 2 minutes, more or less.
Right.
The next video, though, is actually a lot longer, to give you a hint. It's about 2 minutes 40, so it's probably the longest one that I will be producing, so I'm very excited. So this particular video starts with a script. So I've shown this script writing process before, but if we take a look in my documents, my shot scripts, I use a format called Fountain. So this is song 6. And this Fountain script is basically a format that we use inside of a text document that has a number of syntax pieces that we can use. And it's a very simple script. It's got 4 shots, basically, in a shanty town. And when we format the script using the software that's compatible with Fountain, which I would have to install into Visual Studio or separate software, it turns into a script like this. And that's basically where I start. I write the ideas, and this is a very simple idea. From there, I focus on the concept of the story, where I sat down with an iPad and here's the short script, it's half a page. But I stretched each shot out so it's 1 minute. So even though it's practically like 30 seconds of content, I made it into 1 minute. It's very relaxed.
Right.
Based on the audio. So I listened to the audio, got the inspiration, got the idea, got the location of the city, the general idea. And from there, I got my references. So the next step of the project is always feed my mind with ideas. If I take a look at my animatics, take a look at this particular episode, I started getting pictures of inspiration. So for example, these were called, this location in the city is called the Trash Islands. So I wanted to create kind of like a dry estuary or river area with broken bridges and destroyed docks. And from there, I wanted to kind of create a map. So I created this rough map of where I wanted to do the animation of this particular character called Uncle Kenrix. And I wanted to create a basic map of like the Android repair shop is over here in the background. There's a big bridge here. There's some like broken ships and some docks over here, some broken factories. A rough idea of what I wanted to have in the world. And then I created some rough thumbnails. So a thumbnail is basically an idea of doing a storyboard with some rough color, gray, white, black, a rough idea of what this particular animation would be. Once I have that general idea, then I can start thinking about doing the models. So when I start creating the models, I usually have a folder called a library folder. And in this library folder, I would have the environment and characters separate. So I started creating the character first. And to do that, I practically made a kit bash. We take a closer look at the character.
Ooh, a kit bash.
Where is the character? There he is. So as you can see, he's got a cane, he's got a fishing rod, he's got a hat, he's got a face and a
cigarette,
a blunt or something, a shirt. He's got some arms. So I downloaded some CC0 and CC BY assets. I chopped them up into pieces and then I recreated this character. So the pants is from one character, the belt is from another character, the shirt is from another character. The arms are from another, the head is from another model that I modified and resculpted a little. Even the hat is from another model, and I just put them all together, and I use the sculpt tools and all the others to create the character. And from there, to prepare the models, I used my add-on or my action script, which are here, my action recorded scripts, to help me automate some of the process. For example, remeshing, applying the UVs, making sure the texel density is to scale in the world, applying the Painterly shader. And then from there, I just painted the basic colors of the shader in vertex painting mode. So if I go inside the edit mode, vertex paint, I can start painting with like a green color or whatever color I want on the character and get it ready. And then from there, I did the line art. So all my characters has a consistent line art system. If we take a closer look, you can see that the character has some pencil lines on his face and general design. So
and
these,
also some transparency.
yeah, and that's the shader effect from the actual character, the Painterly material. And using these lines, I drew some, for example, I drew in the eyes and the edges of the nose, and I used a baked line art modifier from a camera in 3 different angles to kind of get a basic silhouette without needing to recalculate the system, so that I can rig the character with the actual grease pencil without too much of a performance hit. And after that, inside of my library, I already have a rig that's created. Let me just load it up quickly. There we go. So in my rigs, I have a rig that is already set up with the hands, with the face, with some eyes and things. I already have everything set up as a generated rig that's compatible with Mixamo. I generated it and just like built it already with some basic proportions. And I just added it to the scene and positioned the bones all together when they're showing. I've got to make sure all the bones are showing. And then I position them into the location, and then I weight the character to the already created rig. Saves a lot of time if I just created a rig with everything I need. A basic face rig, really simple. Basic hand rig, super simple too. And I'm ready to rumble. I could load up an animation from Mixamo, and I can bake it to this rig using the Mixamo add-on, and I'm ready to go. So now that I have the character, I prepare the assets. And what I did with the assets in this case is in my library inside the environment, I have a district, which would be the trash island. So in my trash island library, I have 1 collection per asset. So for example, I have a block of rubble. So here's a block of rubble that I just quickly remeshed and built out of some random things or downloaded from Sketchfab, from CC0 or CC BY.
Looks nice.
And I just added the materials. I cleaned up the meshes a little bit, and if we take a closer look, we can see that the meshes are not clean. And that's part of the project, that's perfectly fine. Super low poly, really basic remeshing, just add in the shader, paint in the vertex paints, the vertex weights and colors, and I create a number of different pieces that I need. For example, this really cool ship here.
Ooh, yeah, now that looks good. Ooh,
So this ship was, the trick is to get the scale right. So for example, if I take a look at my preview here, I got all my pieces as instances, and I position the instances around the world so that they would all have a hierarchy or a relationship and scale. There's a chunk of a factory here. Here's another building over here. Here's some cranes over here. This ship here, I really love this piece.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's a really good ship. By the way, did you model most of these vehicles yourself, or did you?
In this case, no. In this case, I used the Sketchfab add-on, and I downloaded them from BlendSwap, which is usually CC0 or CC BY, which means attribution only, but I can do derivatives, and all of these would be derivatives. CC0 is like a public license, which means anybody can use them and do whatever you want with them. And in general, if you find a license that says ND, which is non-derivative, or NC, non-commercial, then in this case I wouldn't use them. But if it's
Good
just
lesson on legal terms.
yeah, in this case you gotta be a little bit aware of what licenses does what, and then from there work with that. But
Yep.
for example, these cars, for example, these were done by cutouts, and I extruded the cutouts and turned them into vehicles, basically, and then remeshed them. That was very quick modeling, super fast.
Ah.
And then I just colored them, put them together. So they were just basically like an image converted into a plane, cut out, extrude, and then remeshed. Since they're in the distance, I don't need them too much.
Yeah.
Another piece is, for example, this piece here. This was actually a Minecraft model, which I had to heavily remesh. You can tell,
No,
but now it's no
it
longer
isn't from Minecraft.
or
It
something.
can't be.
It was a Minecraft model, but as you can see all the blocks here. It wasn't. It was a model, a voxelized model. Let me put it that way. It's something from a voxel model, and then I remeshed it into this particular piece. So these assets,
very impressive remeshing.
So all of these assets only took me about a day or two to prepare, which means I had enough with all the other assets that I have from the world. So I have my library, and inside my props folder, I have hundreds of props now from the different episodes. Every episode I add some new props, but I have some props that I can always reuse for later. So with that, I can quickly build my world. So now that I have my assets and I have everything ready, I do my layout. So I got my library, I first start with an animatic. So what is an animatic? Do you know, Haley?
Yes, I do know what an animatic is. It's sort of like a storyboard, except slightly more animated. And it's for reference for when you eventually do the scene in animation.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm smart.
Yep. So in this case, I created a very brief animatic for the music video. This would be... And so this brief animatic, I did use some image generation from Stable Diffusion to kind of convert the script into something visual. And from there, I got a general idea of how I kind of want these shots, but this isn't the video I'm working on.
I didn't know an animatic could be more than just drawings on white paper.
Yeah, animatic could be anything really, but what I like to
Yeah.
do is when I'm inside Be For Artists and I'm in the script editor, those fountain scripts are super useful because I could load them into here. I can load the script here. So for example, the fountain script of what I was working on in the documents, shot scripts, get the episode I need. I can load this, and inside of the side panel, Control T, I have an add-on called Unfurl Fountain by Tin Witten. So Unfurl Fountain basically converts my fountain script into text inside the video editor with one click. So now that I have the text, I can edit the text to the basic timing of my edit with a single click of a button. And then from there, I could use my references to create the next episode. So here's a quick preview of the next episode. I don't want to show too much, but there we go.
There will be giant robots.
Yes, there are robots everywhere in this world, hopefully. And I work with that to create the general idea.
Right.
So let's see if I can remember. But in this case, because this episode was very simple, I actually used my own storyboard here.
Oh.
And I used it and I did a rough timing of the story, and that's basically it. That was the animatic that I had with the audio. Very simple.
There's one thing I'm not really good at. It's drawing.
Me neither. I mean, it took me like 3 minutes per drawing just to roughly get an idea. You don't have to be.
Way better.
Yeah. But for example, with the next episode, I actually did use proper prompts using the AI and photo references and other things to kind of get me a better idea of what my story wants to be. there's no proper way of doing this. There's no exact way, just the way that helps you to understand. Unless you're working with a
Yeah.
team, then you have to be super explicit.
Yeah, speaking of which, I would like to branch out for a little bit into how good this is in terms of perspective, in terms of different projects. Because this project you got going on right here, I mean, I don't know if you're working with a team or if this is just your own thing, but like what you have here, it has so many more like moving parts and stuff, and it's just so huge, and you have all these processes. Meanwhile, with my, at least the first one, we didn't even come up with a storyboard. We winged the animation, and I mean, it turned out okay, but
You can
it was,
you can also
yeah,
like do storyboards with 3D stuff. Usually the storyboard is just for pacing.
y-
So
y-
like at frame quadrillion 5, you know when to do another shot and something.
yeah, but as I was saying, like, this is a way bigger process than what I was doing back in FBLA. Though then again, we had a time limit, so we couldn't exactly make it as intricate as what you're doing. But I just did want to bring up, at least for a little bit, how, all projects have different processes, if that makes sense. Like
Yes?
yours, yeah, and yeah, like yours has a movie like process, like you're getting references, inspiration, ideas, animatics, and all that stuff. And over here, like, we're able to do some of that, but on a much smaller scale, and you kind of have to wing it and meet the deadline and stuff. But overall, it just brings in a good perspective of how every project is different.
Yeah, they're generally. I mean, there are some nuances. For example, with my process, for example, this is a solo project, but I do treat it as if it was a project with a team of people. The only
Yeah.
problem is I delegate to myself. I tell myself what to do. I'm my own hard boss.
Yeah. But working in a team environment, it really is interesting, especially with the type of people we meet. Like with the first time I was doing it, I was teamed with a person who was deaf, but we managed to respectfully work together, and I learned a lot about, the deaf community, and we actually put in captioning for the deaf community, and that probably gave us extra points in the end. That got us a state championship. And by the way, the dude who I was teamed with, he was really talented.
Oh,
Like
good,
I'm I'm telling you, he's going to Pixar straight up.
good.
Yeah,
But that's
but
that's also when it comes to the animatic, when I'm using the generated images and the text in the actual video and basic thumbnails. This particular process, if you were working in a team, that would be much more elaborate, doing the planning, doing each
oh yeah,
shot.
yeah,
Um,
you are correct. It would be incredibly more elaborate, like what I'm doing this year, because it wasn't as wild westy. Now we are actually we actually came up with concept art and some form of a storyboard as best we could, in a time limit. And there were still learning processes. We weren't always happy, and we have disagreements. Sometimes tempers flared, but that's how it is when you work in a team environment. And the whole goal of a team environment is to pull through in the end to
and
make it
get
to
the
the
job
end goal.
done exactly. And this is
Yeah.
why, even with myself, I try to do a very clear idea at the beginning to kind of avoid. If even if I'm working by myself, I also have to kind of consider that I may not like an idea and I might get distracted with a rabbit hole or an experiment, or I might get stuck on a step because
Oh
maybe
yeah.
I'm not clear on the decision. So I do this as if I was working in a team to tell myself later in time, this was my original intention. Stick to the intention and focus on the mission, focus on
Oh
getting the
yeah.
job done. So even though I create the story and things, I do consider, even if it's a small project or a small team or even by yourself, I consider this step important so that
Mhm.
I don't get too distracted. So let's move on to the next step now that we know this. So then I started doing the layout, and this layout step is basically I have a common folder, and this is the world. So if we go inside this world view and we take a look at this sphere here. So this is the sky sphere, this is the world, and this common asset pack, I guess you could say, is everything inside of the general world. It has the map that I drew earlier with the broken ships and the factory here in the background and the bridges connecting to the other part of the island, the central part of the island over here. It's basically got the docks built into it and everything is okay. Whoops. There we go. So it has all the pieces that I need to have a rough idea of where everything should be. So this is my common asset pack, which is inside a root collection between all of the shots. And then when I go into a single shot, so for example shot number 1, this will load the common and it will load another collection with all of the animated assets, the extra decoration for that particular asset shot, plus the volumetrics and the effects of that shot, plus the lighting of that shot, plus the global shot, and the other animated elements. So as we can see, there's a lot of like flying drones all over the place. And if we take a closer look at the camera, we can see the character in his position, similar to how I drew him. And when I go into the lighting mode, I have the separate lights per shot. So you can see the lights around him to shine, bring him out and pop and make him pop. That particular lighting is only for this particular shot. And then from there, I can set up the animation and render. And you can see the animated elements are here. So I do this per shot. So if I'm going inside into my next shot, which is another scene, same process. I've linked the same character into another collection, but I'm using linking. I have a separate set of lights that are slightly different. I have different types of volumetric effects, and I have different, world lights as well for the general effect of this particular shot, plus the common stuff. So all of this extra detail, you can see, is added to this particular shot when I need it, which saves on render time and load. So I'm doing this per shot. I have the camera set up with the frame ranges, set up inside of the actual scene here, and everything is getting ready to render. So inside the layout, from there I move on to the next step, which is called animation blockout. So for example, with this particular shot here, with a basic character animation, it was really rough. It was a super rough animation that I did of him just kind of like not even doing any lip sync, move the character in the background there, doing a quick animation, moving his arms as if he's pulling back a little bit. And I did a rough animation like that. That's the animation blockout. Usually other people could do the animation polish. This is part of the layout step. I just I do it very quickly. I use Mixamo when I can. I animate by hand otherwise. Do the stepped animation to make it kind of simple and easy. And then I move on to setting up my scenes to render, which means setting up the render settings, which I use a script. Because since I have multiple scenes, I have 4 scenes here or more, I would like to apply the settings to all of my scenes. So I use a conditional for the word scene inside of this loop, which is the scene data with the scene name that starts with whatever tag that I need, so I don't do it to all of my scenes. I can tell it to run a loop on the scene name to change the resolution, change the frames per second, change the samples, change all the information I need, the shadow samples, the files type, everything. And then from there, I set the path of the scenes in a similar process, similar script. And I set the path of the render path to all of my scenes. And then I hit render in a batch script. And I render headless. So from there, I just create a quick batch script in my folder here. If I take a look at this particular file, you can see that it has a short little script to call up Blender. call up the file, and hit render, based on a frame step as a test, and then the frame sequence.
Right.
And I'm nearly done. So the last step of the process, once I've rendered each of the files to disk of the frames of the animation, which would be here, I have different versions. I've rendered them in EXR, a 32-bit float, in linear, or with a filmic color balance a little bit, so I don't get too much high crunched whites, or it's not too dark if it's too linear. And from there, you can use any color transform to bake it in, or just stick to linear. And then from there, I use this data and I load up another scene, which is kind of like a template that I have. So this other scene is my composite scene. So this is a 2-pass render, which means I render the painting to a hard drive, and then I use the painting from the hard drive with some extra color balancing onto the canvas to get the paintbrush texture a little bit better and to get proper color.
Right.
So from there, here's my composite scene, and on the first shot of the video, I also use some other CCO and attribution assets into the actual project. Now, where is my camera?
Oh
There
boy,
it is.
where is it?
There it is. So let me just reset the view. There we go. So I just got some quick assets. I created this sign here to kind of give a hint to where this world is. They're on the Trash Islands in the city called New Hope Limited. And I got some of the assets into the position to kind of set the tone for the video. And then using my template with the shaders, I've applied the painting to the canvas.
Yeah.
And I've done the same process of setting up my shots and hitting render. And now that I have that ready, I can go into my final export file, which is the final video file. And inside the export file, I have song 6, episode 5. Inside the video editing module, I do some quick adjustments of the shots. Got the audio applied. Let me just mute it for a moment. And since this is a very simple shot, I can do the effects of the canvas with the canvas transitions that I have. Do some rough color balancing and adjustments. Add the sound effects at the beginning, at the end. And set the timing right, retiming some of the frames if I need them or not. And that's the final product. From there, I export at a lossless H.264 format to then compress with Handbrake. So once I have my lossless video format, which would be about 1 gig per minute, I then compress it to file formats that are more YouTube friendly or Discord friendly or whatever system that I need. And I would consider this project done.
Yay, completion.
And from there, we focus on publicity, getting some still frames from there. We think of a publishing schedule or plan, and this would go live. So that's the breakdown.
Yeah, I never really thought of a publishing schedule. Usually, if I ever finished an animation, I just post it whenever.
How hard drive I'm kind of drunk has a question. So how hard drive intensive the process is? For example, how much per project would it take for a 2 terabyte hard drive? This particular project by itself with 8 minutes of animation now weighs about 360 gigabytes. So let me just take a look at my settings. There we go. Yes, it's 400 gigabytes, more or less.
That's a lot.
So 8 minutes, 400 gigabytes, that's almost 50 gigabytes per minute of animation in HD. I'm not working in 2K or 4K. This does...
It's all backed up, right, Trace?
Yes, I have this backed up to my other machine. This, just to confirm, I'm kind of drunk. The 400 gigs is with the rendered frames to disk, so these EXR files. To help you save up data, notice that this HD 32-bit EXR file is only 10 megabytes, when typically it should be between 15 to 30 megabytes. Is because I am not using a lossless compression. So a tip to help you save hard drive space for all the frames that you render is render to EXR, but render to the PX24 format for animation. So when you go to open EXR, don't turn on zip, use the PXR24 lossy format, and this will drop your, this is practically the same compression as a PNG, but you get full 32-bit float to do this. And also, if you don't need the alpha channel, then use RGB, and this will save you another 25% of the file size as well. So the final video is also like, I mean, I use a lossless format, but you can always use a high quality format, which maybe could be 500 megabytes per minute instead of a gig, and you can work with that. But yeah, to get my data onto from my old computer to this computer, it took me 3 days just to sync the data from one spinner hard drive to my SSDs.
Ooh, Lord.
But now it's working much better now. Just to give you an idea of how much animation and visual effects can be, I worked for a client who had 50 terabytes on one hard drive and another 60 terabytes on another hard drive on a network hard drive, a NAS. And to deliver to the client this one project, which was taking up space on both of these hard drives, so that was a total of maybe 70 terabytes. It was faster to send it to the client by plane with hard drives in physical format instead of sending it on the internet.
You meant you had to fly by plane?
Not me.
Both?
The client did.
Oh, okay. Still, that's insane. I never heard of somebody doing that.
Which is a typical thing when it comes to these types of projects. I mean, it was a big project, but it was in 22K, so I mean, it was ridiculous for 9 4K cameras.
What, 22?
It was a 360, but I can't say too much anyway. Sorry about that.
Oh,
But
my Lord,
so when it comes to animation, be prepared to buy hard drives and have a lot of them.
Oh my God.
Okay. So that's the rough breakdown of this particular episode. This is probably the most simple and quickest episode I've done of the 5. And now I'm working on the next episode, which hopefully with this computer will be a lot faster. Stay tuned.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next segment. Guy Kind Junks mentioned that his spare hard drive just had an SMART, a smart error.
AKA new paper holder.
Oh no, it died. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Oh no.
Alright. So, the next segment today is about the art that's coming from the community. We have art by Sam Krug, and we also have art by CG, Dynamic CG, and also, I think I can recall the name. Give me a second as I load it. Cheese Bread and White Rooster, who's here today.
Yep, they have a question. Was it one of the new Samsung NVMe drives?
The one that died by I'm Kinda Drunk?
Oh, they're just talking in the chat then, alright.
That's okay. That's okay. So actually, since you're here, White Rooster, you have another title for your YouTube channel. So I wanted to share this piece, which I thought was a very interesting particle experiment that you created.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I quite like the the trend that you're going around with the particles and your exploration with that. And talking of this nebulous effect in the background here, we also have Sam Krug commit 2 pieces and also a White Rooster Productions commit another piece of a space nebula. So Sam Krug with his YouTube channel, he was here connected last week. He has been working with volumetrics and custom volumetrics within Blender. And he's been working a lot with creating his community with this particular aspect. So I highly recommend his tutorials. They're long, but they are informative.
Oh yes, I do like me information.
So they're worth a watch, especially if you're inside space renders and planets and nebula.
Yeah, space is cool.
So another aspect of Sam Krug's community was also another render by Cheesebread. So Cheesebread created this piece also following the advice and things done by Sam Krug. You can see that he's teaching it quite well and his community is growing quite strong when it comes to that.
Oh yeah.
And also, on a side note, Slink also has been testing the new hair geometry nodes from Blender 3.5, which actually is a side note. If you look here down in the bottom edge of this video system, in this area here, we added a set start frame and set end frame into the actual frame range, so that you can actually just like Fusion, you can just click the button and it will set the start and move over and set the end of the frame range whenever you need it, for previewing render or previewing animations without needing to go into the playback menu and hitting those buttons there.
Yes, and we also have Slink sending in a monkey with hair.
And we have it here. Let me just load it up.
Yay, puns.
So in this case, Slink's been using the new Blender 3.5 hair nodes, which are curve nodes that come in with geometry nodes, which you can add to Quickfur or other aspects, or use the asset library that's now included with Blender and Beaver Artist. So if you go inside the asset library, you can click on Essentials, and you'll have a whole bunch of hair nodes. And these hair nodes give you the ability to add clump, curl, crinkle, curve tips, and different types of effects to help you design your hair. The only downside right now is that simulation nodes are still not available until we get Blender 3.6. So simulating this hair is still currently very hard to do or impossible to do. So it's basically good for creating different types of curve effects and scattering grass blades or creating static hair.
Right.
Another thing that's coming new is a bunch of new operators that have been added into the UV editor, into curves and things like that. Lots of little details everywhere, here and there. But the big one that's coming to be for artists is basically the brush panel for grease pencil tips. So if you have a grease pencil panel, you can use the brushes panel now with your custom brushes for grease pencil drawing mode. So you can list all your grease pencils. And also another thing that I changed for Beaver Artist was inside of your brushes, I named the default brushes to grease pencil when they're grease pencil, and sculpting if they're sculpt brushes, and vertex weight or vertex paint texture buttons. So it's easy to just link in and create your brushes from another file without getting confused of which is which in what mode format. In the future, hopefully by 3.6 or 3.7, we're going to get brush assets. I hope. They're still working on it. In that case, then we'll be able to drag and drop a brush into the editor and use it globally or not. And it'll be easier to just use a library of brushes. So that's coming up soon. For the future of Beaver Artist 3.6, I will be creating a library of brushes included for grease pencil. But for now, there is an add-on inside of Blender which you can use for adding in grease pencil brushes called Brush Import Brush Set. So this add-on is included with Blender, which means you can click on the brushes icon menu, and when you do that, click on that, there's a button that says download and import texture brush pack. So this will give you your grease pencil brush packs. So there is one included, but you do have to install the add-on or activate the add-on, click on the button, find the menu, and then they will download. And another piece that we have is done by Dynamic CG. He's done 2 pieces actually, and he's been going through his tutorials, figuring out different effects, and he created this piece, and he's learning very quickly, and his knack for lighting is quite good. So,
that is a crazy Jenga cube.
So I commend you, Dynamic CG, if you are watching this for later, for your effort. Keep the pieces coming. There's also another piece done in the work in progress area of modeling, and the effort done by Marine Mech X2, which I highly recommend you check out in the work in progress thread, because starting on the adventure of modeling, they've been doing a very good job, and thanks for pinging me and saying and letting me know about these pieces. So if you're there for later, Marine Mech X2, thanks as well.
Very good pieces.
So those are pieces we have to date, and then I think this is where we're at, Haley. We take a look at your truck, the last piece that we had a brief look yesterday.
Oh yeah.
So, Haley, you mentioned the model of this truck, and you wanted to compare the pieces and to see where you're going and how you're doing. Lately, you've been feeling a little bit under the weather.
I got sick with a horrible flu.
But you're feeling better now.
Oh, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling great. That's why I'm able to co-host.
Exactly. Thanks for doing that. It's been kind of fun and interesting. So what is this truck model that you're trying to build?
A 769C truck. Dump truck, yeah.
A cat? Or
if you just type in dump truck, then it'll give you the result.
Okay, let's take a closer look. There we go. Oh, it is a cat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, it's a truck.
Good one.
All right, so I'm going to load up your file here, which I have downloaded into the project, and we're going to take a closer look.
Oh yeah.
So here's the truck. There it is, rough materials.
Yeah.
There's the general idea. We've got the general shape, you got the general design, you got the tires, you got the effects here. You got the topology more or less done, the grill and the grate. So this actually is a good segue to go into Mindmaps to help you understand what to do and how to do it.
Oh boy.
So when it comes to references and blueprints that of what we talked about from last week, I recommend to do a closer study, a mind map, especially when it comes to understanding what you want to create. So let's just grab a couple of these images. Maybe this one here, this one here, this one here, they're all relatively similar. I'm going to get the relatively new ones. Here's a side view. Here's another view. I'm just going to grab a whole bunch of them. They all abound. There's lots of details and things that we can work with.
Yeah.
So with these images, if you're inside of Blender, what you can do is you can just drag and drop an image. Wait, I think you can do this. Is this a new feature? Did they make it work? No, it's still not working yet. All right, so you have to save to disk.
If it still worked, that would be cool.
There's an add-on for that.
Yes, there is an add-on for that, but I don't remember the name of the add-on.
But I do.
Import images as plates?
No.
What's the name of the
Image
add-on?
paste.
Image paste?
Image paste.
Is it
It's
free?
free. Yes, you Control C, Control V into Blender.
Huh. Well, that's good.
Sick.
That's the way
I
it
love
should.
it.
We should probably put that in the live chats.
Let's take a look.
This is what I did.
Here's the library. This is done by Yeetus. Yes, I know Yeetus. It's also free.
I do like me free because I am currently broke.
That's okay.
Absolute godsend of an add-on. You can like paste images from the web clipboard, or you can just Control C, Control V from your Fire browser. It just works.
Good.
Good.
Thanks for that. Or I just download them. In this case, if you don't have the add-on, though I do recommend you do use it. And
Yeah,
also
then,
just import images as planes and then
yeah.
select them all. I like importing as planes, make them shadeless, make them
Yep.
opaque, then import as images.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I have them in images is is so that I can get a closer look. So if I have these images here and I go into the top view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick study of what these images are. So I'm going to create just a collection, add them in the collection, create a grease pencil. And what I'm going to do with this grease pencil is basically this. Oh, do I have something? Where is the grease pencil? There it is. Oh, I'm in Tweak, that's why. View, higher menus, snap, change it to that. Thank you, please. There we go. So now that I have a grease pencil, what I can do is in the top view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a study. So when I'm working in a study, what I would like to do is I'm just going to, I have my tablet, but I'm going to use my tablet. Well, hopefully you can see when I'm drawing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Good. I'm going to choose just a basic pen, this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a closer look at what are the details of this particular model. What are the things that I think are important? So this triangular shape of the cabin, the triangular windows. Another thing I want to keep in mind is, okay, I've got to think of like the logo over here. I've got to think of the platforms with the shape of the way these things are. Sometimes a quick trace over helps me understand the shape. For example, here with the bucket here, I have these like little, this bar that goes across like this and then connects here. And then I have a piece that goes like this. And I do a basic rough study of what I'm working on. I have like this overhang up here as well, and I have this shape here. If I go into another image, I can take a closer look. And this is a slightly different model. This is the C model. But this also has a shape that I can use to kind of bring out. It has these ribs that are built into it. And if we take a closer look at the ribs, you can see that the bucket has a different type of bevel shape.
Right.
So in this case, I can take a look that there's this one bevel shape here. Sorry. Where is my selected? Why isn't it selected? There we go. So I have a shape here, and then I have another shape that goes like this. So I can use different color attributes to help me kind of do an analysis of the shape around the different thing. So when I do the study, with this particular study, I can take a note and I can say, this has a different bevel, has a bevel. And the bevel is slightly different than the actual piece up here. Another thing I can do is I can take an idea of the shape of the wheels. So the wheels here, if I move my mouse a little bit, I'm using my grease pencil to kind of draw a general shape around this particular design of the wheel, and it has these bolts that come in twos, and in the center we have kind of a shape that goes out like this, and with the shape we got a general idea of what is this wheel system made of and what are the pieces. We could take a look at like the design of the profile here, the profile of the wheel, the tread. Think of the tread like how often does the tread happen? How does the tread work? In this case, we have. I'll move the camera over just a little bit here. You can take a look at the tread has kind of these grooves.
Yes.
So now that we have done like a rough study with a groove that is like being cut into the rubber, but it's mostly flat, kind of to go onto gravel roads mostly.
Yes.
With a soft, thick rubber. When I have that concept, I've noticed that the general width of the actual wheel, or the groove of the wheel, is the same width of the actual tire. So this particular distance with my study, this is what I call mapping out what you want to do in your mind based on the references. It's doing a very detailed study and analysis of these pieces. So when I go back to my model, after I've done my reference study, I can zoom out and I can go back here and I can take a look at these wheels, for example, and I can take a look and see, all right, based on my notes with these wheels, if I go into the drawn mode, based on my notes, these wheels, I would need to work them a little bit. So in this case, what I could do is, okay, with my notes, the sides of the wheels, which is these parts here, are, let me just show, where's the, turn it into individual medium point. The wheels are very flat on the sides, so I make it flatter. And instead of going the groove shape of these wheels, the groove would actually be inside the wheel. So in this case, I would have to either, since I've already done the radial array of this particular piece, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select some of the faces. This one, this one, this one. I'll just use this piece here. I will separate by selection.
Yeah.
And then I'll put the cursor inside the middle of this. So snap cursor to selected. I'm going to snap the point of this particular object to cursor. So now that when I rotate it, goes around like this. I'm going to use an add-on called Radial Array.
Oh, is it free?
It is free.
Okay.
Radial Tools. And I'm going to just click on Radial Array. And just radial array it around.
That is so cool.
There you go. I'm going to hide the other one, the original. So now that I have this, I've got the radial array. And so when I hit, this is basically what it does is it adds a modifier with the offset based on an object. And it will merge at a certain distance and give me a fixed count. So I can give it like 16 grooves, 16 or less grooves. Or, yeah, as you can see, it's done by an object. So it helps you save that time a little bit to help you do the wheel. And then from there, I can take these faces, or this face here, this one, sorry, this one, move it out. Or focus on moving the groove and fixing the groove and moving it in based on, I'm just going to minimize it a little bit. And also, if I look back at my notes, if I'm back in my notes over here, if I look at my notes, look at the shape, it goes side, up, down, side, up, side. Side, up, down, side, up, diagonal up, then side again. So side is a bit lower than the top. So this particular shape, what I could do is I can, for example, just grab this grease pencil, select those strokes, just to have like one of these strokes. I'm going to select it. I'm going to duplicate it underneath grease pencil, separate. I'm going to do separated selected strokes. And now it's a separate object. I have two objects, and I'm going to use this object in object mode. I'm going to put it close to the wheel, and actually let me just grab it and make it bigger, rotate a little bit. I have a general idea of what it is. So I've traced the general shape and design of this particular idea with my mind map inside of Blender, so that I can use this general pattern that I kind of roughly created from the photo reference to help me design my shape of the groove. So as you can see, the shape is side, down, up, side again, when the shape is side, diagonal up, diagonal down, side, diagonal up, and then side again. So with that, when you do a mind map, when you do a detailed study of your references, it can help you clarify what you need to do and how to do it. It can help you do a study of the geometry, a study of the topology, a study of the blueprints, and help you get a detailed idea of what you need to do. And using the grease pencil or using blockout or using the references images inside of Blender helps you to get that job done quicker.
Right.
So that's how we do a mind map. Another example of a mind map, I'm just going to quickly load one for you, is this particular project. I can't tell you who or what, but I'm going to give you a rough idea. Basically is I'm creating some rules for a game, and I'm basically designing after looking at references from generated from AI or from references from the game, what I don't want, what I do want, what is good, what is not good, and from that created some rules to kind of help me design the game later in the process. And using that in 3D with 3D models, with my notes, it's a very powerful tool to create a mind map to help you design the concept art and design your final models based on actual study and research.
Right.
So this is one of the mind maps I'm currently working on at this moment, and another mind map I sometimes do is I use PureRef, not inside Blender, but I can also load a mind map of, for example, the next episode. In the next episode, I basically have a shot. I've got my references that I found from other people or from generated, and I get a general idea of what I want to do with the idea that I have in my mind of what the story needs to do. And from that, I can use these ideas or references or mood boards with some extra notes and extra research to then create new art.
Right.
And that's basically what I wanted to share with mind maps.
All right.
And the last thing but least is Haley. So I hope that helps you. Does that help? Do you have questions about the mind map process and what you would need to do with your truck?
Oh, I mean, this whole mind map thing seems cool, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's for me, And at least in terms of modeling vehicles, in terms of like an actual full blown animation thing, yeah, this would all probably be very useful, and yeah, that would be nice. But I don't think it would like I don't want to say it gets in the way because that would sound rude, but it's the best way I can put it. It would get in the way of how I do things, which is, I mean, I try and look at it, and then I try and replicate it the best that I can.
In that case, this is, well, a mind map is basically that. The process of looking at something. So
Yeah.
it's just doing it in depth. I highly recommend it because in this case, for example, with this particular model, when it comes to the C769, if we look at the cabin here, even the cabin has a slight, it needs to be more triangular. The front is sloped back. The front is very sloped back, has a little bump here. The front is sloped back, has a bump. Front has sloped back and it has a bump. So when you're creating your model here, you can notice that the slope is not strong enough. So you would have to slope it back and create the bump.
Which in that case, I would need to create a mirror modified cab.
Though it's not quite symmetrical, there's a part that goes, there's the part that goes to the back here. So you need to be careful, like when you're looking at your references, to make sure you're looking at the right parts.
And I also have to model non-destructively, so then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And watch your topology as well. I can notice like these stray little points here.
Yeah, the topology, not exactly sure how to keep that in check.
Yeah, a quick thing, for example, is when you're modeling based on your idea to get your shape, your general shape of your models, is always start with block out. Like get the general idea of the shape first, and then always then go and use your modifiers. For example, the bevel modifier, super useful, and dynamic booleans. So, for example, if I have a cockpit,
dynamic booleans.
Or, for example, another thing is solidify. Solidify when doing hard surface is very useful. So when you solidify something, you don't have to model all of the pieces together, and you can create your window. And also, one also use booleans, live booleans a lot. For example, there's a really cool add-on included with Blender called Bool Tools. And so you select the bool first, select the next object, and then you use a brush boolean difference, for example, and then from there we have a way to draw the bool inside the actual object.
And the geometry would be more clean?
Yes. So as you can see in the geometry right now, because I have a non-manifold mesh that is solidified after I do the bool, or let me just confirm. No, it's before the bool. But if I solidify after I do the bool, then I can see that there's a window, but in this case I want the boolean after. So you have a cleaner mesh, you can see that the corners here are much cleaner. And if I want, for example, a bevel on this window, I can add the bevel to the bevel object, and I've already got the segments, and I can change the scale of that particular area, right? And it's very clean.
Useful.
So use the modifier stack more often.
Yeah, I'll make sure to do that. And this also works for non-hard surface modeling, right?
Yeah, it works for all types of modeling. This is good for box modeling, I like.
Yeah, that is so cool.
And on top of that, like for example, once you're done, like if you understand the order of your stack, so I've done my boolean, I've done the bevel on the boolean works, I got the bevel on the actual object, and then I solidified it, and I want to add another bevel, I can add another bevel, and now the window has a bevel of itself. So now the window has a little bevel here, and it's all very clean and very dynamic. So if my shape is not, I can take these two objects, I can go into my top view like this, I can rotate them around, and I can compare it to my drawing or my reference, take a look at the measurements, and I can kind of like get a better idea of, and when I want to edit, I don't have to choose all of my the bevels, I just edit part of the pieces, not everything. And it's much easier to edit my mesh in that regard. So I can then extrude here and kind of create that little bump that I had earlier from the actual model here.
Right. Yeah, this is one of the greatest things I have ever learned from this show.
Good. I hope it helps. And same with the bevel here. Like because I got this as a simple mesh, I can create the window shape very easily and work with that shape to kind of help me dynamically make the cabin shape without needing to push and pull all of the vertices. I just push and pull a basic mesh vertice of the actual model.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there we go.
this is so cool. Thanks
So
for teaching me that.
yeah, it's all good.
What do you think of the dump truck model overall? Good, bad?
Proportions are alright, but as I mentioned earlier, you need to take a closer look at the references, because based on the references, your wheels are very tall, when in fact its motor is a lot shorter. The cabin is the same height as the motor. So in this case, your cabin is almost the motor is like 50% bigger than the actual cabin. And also the same with the height, the depth of the actual container here is not as deep as this one. So the actual shelf up here is almost half the height of the actual container. Well, depending on the model. But with this particular model here, it's almost 1/3 of the height of the actual depth. And this particular model. So you gotta think about your measurements, but this is looking at references, doing a study, and taking a closer look to get it done.
All right. How about I work on this more and then it can pop up later on?
There you go. See how you improve.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably keep working on new models, but, I'll work on this in the background and then show improvement.
That's the goal.
Yes.
All right, good. Well, I hope that helps. So this leads us to the last and final piece of today's session before we finish up, because time is ticking. I want to say thanks, Haley, for sharing the model to show you how to do these things. I think that's very brave of you. And
no problem.
Thanks for your company to do this. So last but not least, the final little tip that I have today is basically, if you're using Windows 11 and you miss Windows 10, do not worry. You can go back to Windows 10 with Windows 11 by using a couple of different modifications which are not too invasive. So the first things I wanted to recommend is using Start 11 by Stardock. The Start 11 gives me the option to add back an old start menus, or the Windows 11 start menu, or the Windows 10 start menu. Change the start button, make this taskbar show text all the time like I would have earlier on in Windows 10, and change a number of different things. It's got a lot of extra control as well. So Start 11 I really like. On top of that, you can also add colors just like you would in Windows 8. Ha! I missed that. I know you guys may hate it, but I like it.
I never even heard of it.
So if you miss the start menu of Windows 10, you can always add that back. It costs about $15, but for life, it's okay. And then from there, if you miss the start menu and you're stuck in like Windows 11, but you kind of miss the ability to customize your shortcuts or your quick access, or you miss the ribbons, if you want those back, I recommend you use another software called Start All Back, I think it is. So Start All Back also gives you an option to change the menu, but I usually just turn that off to not conflict. But in the Explorer, I have the option of changing Windows 11 command bar, which is the old one, the new version, which is a little limited, or I can use the Windows 10 ribbon, or I can even go back to Windows 7.
Oh yeah, Windows 7.
And also, if you don't like the start menus of the right-click menus of the Windows desktop, and you want to use the old one and you're sick and tired of hitting right-click, more options, going into the old classic menus. If you want the old context menus, Start All Back also allows you the ability to give you the classic context menus with a single click. And it also allows it the nice transparent effect and add in the fonts that you want as well. So you can, like, for example, it uses the same fonts as the rest of Windows and it makes it kind of nice.
Yeah, niceness.
Other things that I liked that I changed for Windows as well is just the mouse cursor, which I kind of like. You can download any one you want. To do that, you would go to mouse settings, I think it is. And instead of using the built-in mouse pointers, you'll go into additional mouse settings, and in the pointers you can load any pack that you want. You can browse and load a pack that you can download and
wow.
change them to whatever you want.
Ooh.
So there's like little things you can work with just to change things up. Obviously, hiding something, showing some other things in the actual default settings help. But that's basically what I do. Oh, and another thing as well, if you don't like, another thing is the quick menu. I usually pin a lot of my stuff there. But if I don't want to see, for example, my documents or something else like that, you can go inside of your folder settings, and in the view settings, you can kind of control what you see and what you don't see. So I recommend you to poke around a little bit, but using those two software, Start 11 and Start All Back, it's kind of nice. And one final bonus thing to help power your Windows experience is, for example, a quick search button to start writing whatever you want. For example, if I need to open up my folder called LE, I can just click on that with a search button, similar to the Linux system of searching a terminal. For example, I want a command line or something like that. I just press the Windows space key, but that could be any key. And this is using a tool called Power Tools by Microsoft. So this is Power Toys. So Power Toys actually gives you a lot of extra functionality into Windows, including fancy zones if you need them, but Windows 11 already has that built in, which is kind of nice. It has a batch renamer. It has a color selector, which is kind of cool. So Windows Shift C, and I can select a color in the actual interface so that I can get the actual hex number, and I can configure that to be whatever I want, and it will give me this little color picker. So that's kind of cool. And other things like that. And also, if you want to do some fine tuning for some smaller elements, for example, hiding the shortcut icon so you don't need to see it, you can use another add-on called WinAeroTweaker. So this will give you the ability to change a number of different things. For example, the width of the actual scroll bars. If you think this is too thin and you don't like that, well, you can change that. So there's a lot of things you can do. Obviously, do everything at your own risk.
Yes.
I wouldn't recommend it if I wouldn't poke around too hard without reading what it actually does first a little bit.
Absolutely.
So
you don't want to accidentally crash your PC if you make the mouse too big.
Or corrupt your operating system. But if anything, do that when you do a fresh install, play around when on a fresh install, and then go from there. And
well, we do have one question from I'm Kind of Drunk. Last one, does the color calibration still work on Windows 11 Win plus R DCCW?
So Win R DCCW? Yes, it does. Wait, next. Yeah, the same system works. So there's some good things about Windows 11 that I like. Better integration with Edge. A nice notification bar. All around generally zippier, cooler animations. The Explorer is kind of more pretty. The auto snapping at the top here is super nice. I really love the snapping system. And the desktop switching is much nicer than Windows 10. And with that, there's a couple other features. For example, I can install Android apps and I can install Linux apps whenever I want, practically, eventually.
Yes.
So there we go. I hope that answers your question. I'm kind of drunk. And so there we go. And also, Kind of Drunk says Windows kind of looks like GNOME now. It does a little bit.
You mean the Linux OS operating system?
Yes, all right. That's right. So, thanks, Haley, for sharing your model, for being my co-host. And
yay! No problem.
No worries. Very dynamic. And for those of you who are here still, thank you for hanging out till the end. I will be here, same time, same place next week, to share what's happening. And
You're all very cool.
no, wait. Next week I'm on holiday actually, so I won't be doing the Q&A next Friday because it is Easter weekend.
Vacation.
That's right. But the 2 weeks from now, which is the 14th of April, this is when we have a special guest. And the special guest is a Geometry Nodes guru from Spain who comes in from Cinema 4D, and he has been creating a free Geometry Nodes pack with Cinema 4D type workflows for Geometry Nodes. So stay tuned for those who like motion graphics and procedural modeling. In 2 weeks' time, we have an extra in-depth look of the thought process of this particular pack of this great Spanish artist. So have an excellent.
Make sure to stock the YouTube channel.
There you go. Like and subscribe. And all right, so have a good one. So thanks, Haley, and have an excellent weekend and an Easter holiday.
Yay!
All right, see ya.
Thank you, Trace.
So, how'd I do as co-host?
All right, very animated, but I'm trying to find my OBS.
Oh, we're still live.
You're still co-hosting.
You are still co-hosting. Trying to find out which desktop I was recording from. There we go. All right.